global compensation. That really is a big issue because of the fact you're going from one country into another country, and sometimes exchange rates, even on a daily basis, they fluctuate. You have differences as to what you're being paid in. You have differences in the banking as you go through. You toss in your credit card, you're expecting to get this interest rate over here, and all of a sudden it's different because you're in a different country as you go through. There's a lot of differences that happen. The compensation programs, they have to be proactively managed as you go through to keep them fair and attractive. Otherwise, you may have somebody going on a 2-year assignment and they find that instead of actually making more money because they're doing this extreme extra work, they're actually losing money because of inflation or some type of other issue. So really a balance sheet approach is the most traditional method where you have a base salary that's equal to the domestic counterpart, and you supplement that with different kinds of allowances and bonuses. It could really be complex to administer as you go through. A lot of times you have a hybrid compensation scheme. Sometimes you use a big lump sum salary to provide an extra bonus as you go through. Sometimes you have high tax rates. You leave the United States, you go to work in Sweden, all of a sudden you got a 70% tax rate. Well, how in the world are you going to do something with a 70% tax rate when you're usually paying less than half of that? So that being said, says what kind of compensation can you provide? Maybe premium housing. Maybe you sit down and you have a company house that you bought and they live in the house, and then you get some kind of stipend on top of that. And then maybe you give them super education for the kids where they're paying $30,000 a year. Maybe you pick up that tab instead of the employee doing that as well. Some kind of allowances as you go through, because there's higher expenses while you're living abroad as well. A cost of living adjustment, tax differentials, education, moving as you go through. A lot of times bonuses are there as you go through. Sometimes contract termination payments, home leave as you go through. There's a whole series of different aspects of things you can pay or make adjustments to people that are sacrificing on behalf of the company. Of course, yes, they're doing it because they're getting paid. And that's why you need to make certain that payment really goes very well, because somebody else may snatch them up. If you have an employee that's actually willing to go to a different country for your company, that person is valuable for you because so many people turn it down, and somebody is that valuable, somebody else may pursue them and offer them a much better compensation package. That's why this is a big deal as you go through. In practice, a lot of times you get about 60 to 75% of the base salary paid in the host country currency, and then all kinds of different aspects about a difference in compensation as you go through. And a lot of it, the third country nationals, a lot of times you pay them the same as the host country nationals as you go through, and you sit down trying to figure out the tax differentials, and it can be very complicated. You should have your accounting department really doing a good job on that. And then a home leave bonus can also create status problems as you go through in compensation. So international status, really the expat, they should get all the allowances and bonus applicable to the place of residence and employment, just making certain that they're going to be compensated appropriately and they can actually see it. Here's some perks. A lot of these perks are unique to really the expats who are serving your company out of the host country's nation as you go through, or the actual district office as you go through in the process. Cars, a lot of times include a chauffeur as you go through. You can get them, frankly, sometimes you can go to another country, you can get the chauffeur and the car cheaper than a car payment in the country they came from as you go through. A certain private pension plan that's unique, a retirement payment, life and health insurance, emergency evacuation services if they're needed. And by the way, sometimes it really is. Kidnapping insurance, yes, there is such a thing as you go through. Okay, extortion insurance in the process. Those things happen because sometimes if you're an abroad executive, you do face the possibility of somebody kidnapping you and holding you for ransom for X number of dollars in the process. Often, it's pretty common to have a company house or apartment or a directorship of a foreign subsidiary, club memberships. A friend of mine, he was in Egypt. We went and I went to his club, and the club was spectacular, ritzy, fabulous, and everything else. And it was only for club members. It was very expensive for the people in the country, but it was just part of his compensation package as you go through. Often extensive perks as you go through, and compensation, you normally have 60 to 75% in really the home country's currency as you go through, allowances and bonuses. They often have a very different structure depending upon where you're at, but they're also very common to make certain that you keep those people that are willing to go abroad for your company and serve the company's interests. Take care.